Well, first of all, I would like to talk about my childhood. Maybe when I was 8 or 15, I started to hear a little bit about Christian people and a little bit about Christian stories, And then I started to think, maybe, I just want to go and see what's happening in a church. And then I went first time, and I went over to, start everyone going in the church with the family members and some of the white people, Christian people. And for myself, I just walked in just myself, not with my family. I went to sit, quietly and hearing, starting off, there was a minister saying, we're going to sing this song. And I had a hymn book in my hand. So he called a number, and I have to open up the page. And then I started to look at in English only. And while they were singing, I just watched the words, from first to the second, third, and the fourth. I was just watching every word in English and just following up what the words mean when they were singing. And then I started to think of the tune that while they were singing, and just hearing Moses in English words and the tune of the songs that the one they were singing. And I started to, and I didn't really understand it all, but I just loved going over and hearing and listening songs and listening a little bit about stories from the Bible. And later on, as I was, just doing the same thing, and then I decided to be confirmed, baptized first in the confirmation. And I went through, with other young ladies in my age and a couple of, I think from 10, and we all went to that. We all wearing the white gown or something white one to look much brighter in a way, like because we were looking for. We want to went through that baptizing service. And I can remember who's the person he baptized me, but I still remember of myself where I went through lining up with other girls, going forward and baptized, and then moving out to, I just can't remember when the time was confirmation service, but I think it was a bit later when we were a little bit older, maybe could be 16, but the 15, it's the time when I got baptized and came to the 16, probably that's the time when for the confirmation service had been continued. And it was really the time when I couldn't, just learning a little bit from watching other people, especially my own people, watching the little ones with their families, going into church, and looking at some of the white people, the ones they brought the gospel to in our community, CMS staff. And, I think that's the time when I started to realize, starting to, hearing the word of, listening to the Spirit. I didn't really understand, but it just, my movement as I was going around, just seeing those things. Even at night, they used to have a fellowship, a small gathering, going along and hearing some of them in my language now. Outside, they used to sing in our own language, a couple of songs. And I didn't really learn straight away, just little by little, hearing the songs, in my own language and sometimes in English. And, going home and thinking of my own language and in English. And, it was something that I couldn't really understand, but it's just the way that I was just learning by listening, looking at other people, hearing them, like when someone was preaching, like especially minister, sharing the word of God. As I was, going along, and then I went away again, turned away from following Christ. I went, and one day I went, I was doing, that was the night when I went to gambling. I went home, and, I was just about to go to bed. Then I went to sleep, and somewhere in the middle of the night, or could be early morning, I went to sleep, and then my head was spinning, and I said, getting up, and I said, oh, something wrong with me. And then I went to the laundry and washed my face. I washed my face and, drink a little bit of water, and sitting there for a while. And then I said to myself, I have to go to bed now. It's really late. Then I went to sleep. Then I just went to sleep very quietly. And it was one morning, early in the morning, in my dream, that I dreamed about Moses in the burning bush. I just seen the burning bush. And in that burning bush, I seen it, and I just heard some sort of voices, maybe God's voice. And I got up in the morning, and I just sat quiet to myself. And my parents, they seen me and said, you seems to be quiet today. Is there something wrong? And I said to them, yeah. But I didn't tell them that I had a vision. I just said, yeah. I just woke myself, make something to eat for my breakfast. And now I started to go back in. There was still a voices. And then there was a fellowship at the middle camp. So I decided to go over. And then I walked over, and I sat, just everyone was singing, and I just sat quietly. And then I asked my brother minister. I told him about my dream, and he said, "Okay, we'll pray for you." I asked them to pray for me, and I think himself and two other ladies, my two other aunties. They pray, they lay hand on me, and that's where, even though when I came to know the Lord again, and still, going in like a couple of years, still, going, and I didn't share with anyone, but I just kept it to myself, the vision that I had. And I remember that once when I shared with my sister, I said, before I share it to her, but when they were praying for me, I heard the voices wasn't there anymore. It just, probably it was God's voice. Mm-hmm. And it always reminds me of the picture of the burning bush. And I think of myself, God has called me just like Moses. And then I started to read in my own language, all about, we got Exodus. And I was just reading a little bit of his stories. And it just made me to really understand what he done to his people, children of Israel, when they walk out from the Egypt. And I was just thinking of that life that I was there like them. And then God took me out from that place. My life was very bad. I was just thinking of myself. I said, God wants me to, He set me free from all these things, and walking out to the place where it's like a promised land. Is people where you can look and see around you. There's people and the land and family members. All this, it just reminds me of that story from the Moses, and that's where I keep believing, the picture of the Moses when he got the children of Israel out from the land of Egypt. The family members, they asked me if I can, take the service, especially like memorial service, if I can, take the service for the person and the people. They would love to talk about his life and, just say he was a good person, that he had a family and very respectful person. Those are the things that people, they just want the memorial service to be, taken place in a way like, so the other people, they would love to hear and say also, they would love to say goodbye, because sometimes the body might fly out in the bush. So that's where the memorial service will be happen in our church. And then after the church, the coffin goes straight to the airport and it fly out to the bush. And it's just a time of, saying goodbye. And, it's very, some people, they won't attend his funeral out in the bush. Always be, family members or the family, they just want to go over to pay respect in a way like for the family members, if they can go there for his funeral out in the bush or say goodbye at the church, saying to him, we miss you, and we won't be there for the funeral. Just quietly standing there and looking at the coffin, and maybe probably they speaking inside themselves, saying goodbye, and I think that's what the service is about, like funerals and a memorial. But when I take the funeral, it's sometimes the people just come in for someone that he passed on. They just have to respect the people. They have to come along, even though non-Christian, non-Arabian people, white people, they come along, and I just share the gospel readings, and sometimes I don't use in English. I have to use in my own language, and then I can explain both ways in my language and a little bit of English. And then, I didn't know that God was using me that time, but I couldn't understand. But when I started to read in my language, it just surprised me. And I got shocked of myself, and I said, how do I know how to read? And I started to think of the Holy Spirit was showing me and teaching me how to read in my own language. And now I believe that, my language in the Bible will be having them by next year. And I'm looking forward when we'll be receiving our own Bible. And I really thank God, even though it's very hard times that I went through with many problems, many struggles, But, God has always been faithful. It always doesn't matter. It's very hard. Sometimes, you don't expect miracles, but it's just something that God knows from your heart. But the community that we were, many of us, trying to provide something in activity for the whole children in the community. And I think, I get involved with, not in a part of the Christian work, but, the community involvement. Maybe games like sport, basketball, or taking the kids out to, just taking them out like going to the waterfalls, but they can't go swimming, but they go out in the swimming pool. That's what I said to them last time. Don't take them somewhere in the water holes, or it's not safe for every other kids. Take them to the swimming pool and grab the parents to go with them. Where I read that all the time, I said, when I do my work, preaching or other things, or even my own personal life that I go along, I just always remember I didn't choose God. He chose me, even though it was in the beginning. And that is my favorite verses that always encourage me. Even though I see many people don't come to our church, but as a small group of the ladies, we sit very quietly. We sing a couple of songs. Number one song is, "This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice." And it's always encouraged me as we start off by singing. And that's where I think it's really something that is very important for us. Always remember the day when, God, wonderful creation, He was working on, and then finally it came to that day when He rested. And that's where I think that my song that I always start off in our morning service.